Good evening. We're really glad to be with you this evening, and I have a special guest named Charlie Thompson. And so, welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to do that. I know on the screen it says what year you graduated, but we'll see if you remember. You're getting kind of old, so I don't know whether you will or not. So,
Well,
actually, yeah, go ahead.
I was the class of 1981.
81, and that's an honor class this year,
That's
along
right.
with ones last year. Of course, we're going to have our weekend's going to be virtual, and so we're kind of working up to that. And how many years did you attend? Did you attend all 4 years?
I did. I have the four hash marks on my letter jacket.
You're a
Goes
four-year,
back to the
four-year.
enterprise.
Yeah,
That represented however many hash marks you had was how many years you had attended the school.
yeah, that's great. There's a few of us that were 4-year guys. A lot of them came from the junior academies and stuff. Uh, did you have the privilege of working on campus?
My freshman year, I worked for Mr. Bing,
Okay, so you learned how to do.
and well, my I hate to tell you, my greatest memory from working for Mr. Bing is I got hazed by his son Doug.
We'll have him on later. Of course, he's doing our speaker for the weekend, but I'm going to interview him, so maybe I'll ask him about that.
Well, it was actually very hilarious. I mean, some Haitian you can't talk about, but this was actually a hilarious thing that they did to
Oh,
me.
but Doug's a good guy. He's a precious guy. We really
No,
appreciate
he's
him.
he's a dear friend. But I spent from my sophomore year on, I worked at Midco Plastics.
Oh, okay, yeah,
For those of you who worked at Midco, I was the operator of number two, and my specialty is they used to make these Doscasil Pizza Hut bags, and I used to make a lot of those things.
yeah. They just kept coming off the line, right?
They kept it coming. You throw them on a box and put the tape on them and stack the boxes up. And it was at that point after working there for 3 years, I decided, I think I need to do something else with my life. Factory life is not for me.
Yeah, right. You could do something better with your life. Uh, you think about the cafeteria, and maybe you have good thoughts about the cafeteria, or maybe not so good. But uh, did you, by any chance, have a favorite meal that came across in the cafeteria?
I'm a big breakfast guy. My wife could tell you all about my breakfasts all the time. I even cook at our house, but so breakfast was my favorite time to eat there. And believe it or not, they used to make this thickened fruit that you'd put on toast. And man, I just love that stuff. There just wasn't almost enough of it for me. But
Right.
my best memory of the cafeteria is at all the meals, guys would get there early and they'd line up outside the door, and for whatever reason, instead of the door pushing out, it opened inward. And so they would unlock that door and we would go in that door like we were on a riot. And I remember sometimes I would be in the middle and your feet would be lifted off the ground. You'd just be shoved right through the doorway there.
Yeah, right. You didn't have to walk or anything. You just were gonna
Yeah,
float right.
just shoved right in there.
Yeah. How about classes? You had to do that once in a while. Go to class. Did any class stand out as something you enjoyed?
Yeah, that was another job. I had forgotten about this, but probably one of my favorite classes. I took printing from Mr. Henriquez, and that led to me working for him a little bit, and eventually led to me being the editor of our today's the newspaper.
Okay. Huh. It's interesting what
And
experience we get along our way, isn't it?
yeah, it was such a popular position to run for essay that nobody ran against me.
Well, they just knew, they saw your talent and just couldn't,
No,
knew they couldn't
they
match.
saw my
So,
they saw a live body and they said, "He'll do it. Let's get him."
yeah, let him have it.
I had
Let's
fun
you
with it
go.
though. I really did. In fact, John Mark Peckham worked with me a lot, and I had several other staff that were there, but John and I did a lot of it together. A lot of the layout and writing articles and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. We made a very commemorative senior trip issue with all of our pictures and of the senior class, and we went to Washington D.C. and all the places we went. I
Hmm.
somewhere in a chest, I think I actually have a copy of it.
Neat. So that's that, and that really gave you good experience for what you're doing now. So what did
Yeah.
you do? Incidentally, what did you do after academy? Was life Is there life after academy?
Oh yeah. I went straight to college, and believe it or not, when I got to college, I for a very short time, I worked for what is now called Advent Source, and I ran
Yeah.
the AB Dick 360 for them while they were doing some printing. So that was the beginning at Enterprise Academy of my printing, and my ending was at college. So
Began and stopped. Then
yeah, yeah,
after college, you went into the ministry, right?
that's
Did you go
correct.
to go to seminary?
I did not.
Okay,
I,
I didn't remember whether you did or
I
didn't.
no, I
So
actually I talked to Elder Gordon Retzer and just said, man, uh, if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd like to go right straight into the ministry. And for whatever reason, they said okay. And so I left. I'd been interning in Wichita South Church, and they moved me from there to a 4 church district up in the Panhandle of Nebraska, the
uh-huh.
Shadron district.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So what are you doing now?
well, I am the youth director of Indiana Conference, and I've been here a year or two. I'll
Yeah,
just say this: my hair was not this color
it
when I
wasn't that
showed up.
color when you came, right? You're almost becoming an institution there, I think. So
It's been a while.
yeah,
The Lord is good.
it's a great conference. So I'm glad you're there. Uh, did you go on tours, or did you? Well, I know you play an instrument because I know you play little stringed instruments and stuff.
Yeah, my the instruments that I played didn't go too well with Mr. Crandall's style of music. So I'm a bluegrass guy, and so the
Yep.
mandolin and the guitar and that stuff, they never utilized those skills. I think I went on a couple of tours and I ran the lights, and I went with Mr. Crandall once and one season and sang the Messiah. That was his big deal, was to we're gonna Christmas time, we're all gonna sing the Messiah. So
So you
I was more of a baritone, but since I could squeak out a few tenor notes, they made me a tenor.
made you strain just a little bit to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you suppose you would say would be your best experience that you had at Enterprise?
Oh, um, I think one of the life changing experiences for me was, and I think his name was, I better not say it, but the youth director from Oklahoma Conference back in the day, he came up and he did a week of prayer for us. And I don't know if he was doing this to everybody, but I remember he kind of caught me right before I went into the cafeteria, or not the cafeteria, but the auditorium there.
Yeah.
And he just said to me, he says, "Charlie, are you saved?" And I said, "Well, Jesus loves me." And he wasn't really very satisfied with that. And so he asked me again. He says, "Charlie, are you saved?" And I says, "Well, Jesus forgives me of my sins." And he wasn't satisfied with that. And so he asked me again, and I literally broke down and cried. And I was like a lot of, young people that go through that stage of life. And especially, back in those days, I was not too sure of my salvation. And I had to tell him, I said, no, I don't think I am. And I don't remember too much more of the conversation. I'm sure he tried to help me, but it really set me on a path at that point of trying to figure it all out. And I just as a young man, just reading through the Bible, I stumbled on 1 John chapter 5, verse 13. It says, if you believe in the name of Jesus Christ, you have eternal life. And, I was like a drowning man when I read that. And I've grasped onto it. And, not only did it uh, give me hope, I believe that it was an important step in me becoming who I am today.
Oh, that's exciting. The Lord uses people along the way, doesn't He, to touch
Yeah.
lives. I know He's used
Yes.
you in your ministry to touch lives of young people along the way, and He used him to touch your life, and that's really great. What did you enjoy most about Academy and Academy life?
Um, it wasn't actually school. Uh, I enjoyed my friends. It was about my friends,
Yeah.
and there were a group of us all in the same class. We made a little gang, and the name of our gang was the Assassins,
Oh.
and and we even had little calling cards that said, "Assassins, call us before we call you." And it had a little gun with a little flag coming out the end that said "bang" on it. And so we had a lot of fun with that. Then we even got T-shirts that said the Assassins on them, and they
Well, you
didn't let us wear them
but
around too much.
yeah.
And a bunch of the girls decided they were going to have their day in court because the day we wore our T-shirts to school, they came to school with shirts that said "We are the Assassinettes."
But
And
when
so
you're
they stole our thunder. It was,
it's hard to
but
be tough, isn't
it's
it?
hard to be tough when the girls are showing you up.
Oh, I tell you. But those are the kind of things that happen at Academy because you and your friends become family,
Oh
and
yeah.
and they really are. You of course you leave home at an early age for some of us, and especially if you're 4 year, you're kind of young, and you go there and you basically form a family and friendships that last the rest of your life,
Oh,
and
it's true.
you know. So anyway, well, I'm glad you got to go to Enterprise. And is there anything else you'd like to tell me about your experience there?
I would. I saw one of the questions you sent them to me in advance, and it asked who my favorite teacher was,
Oh,
and
that,
I
sorry.
she was not really a teacher, but Mrs. Crandall um, had a huge impact on my life, and I discovered probably sometime in my sophomore year that I could say things that made people laugh, and there were certain teachers it was really easy to make fun of them during class, and I would pop some zingers off, and everybody would just roar and roar and roar. And so I was starting to become a bit of a nuisance to the learning
Last round.
process. And so I went into the registrar's office, and Betty Crandall was the registrar at that point, and she says, "Charlie, can you sit down for a minute?" And I said, "Sure." And she says, "Charlie, you've been such a sweet boy here. Everybody when you came here, they were just so amazed by how sweet you were, how kind you were, and all of that." And she says, "But Charlie, I've been hearing, that you're actually you're starting to get kind of mouthy, and just you're not being the same sweet guy you used to be." And she could have thrown a rock in my face and done less damage. I mean, all of a sudden it struck me, man, I haven't been very nice. I have been given, especially certain teachers, a pretty hard time because it was easy. And she says, why don't you just try to be a little kinder? And I literally broke down and cried again in that moment. And I'm friends with her on Facebook, and I was able to just relate that story to her here a few years ago via Facebook. And so that was a high point for me at the academy.
Yeah.
It made a difference. When you think about things that are fun that you did, Kat, there's lots of stories you can tell about that. But at the end of the day, I really believe that there are many things that happened and many people that I met at Enterprise Academy that changed my life forever. And I wouldn't be here today if those things hadn't happened to me.
And we're thankful for the staff that care enough to make that difference, aren't we? That's
Yes.
fantastic. That's good. I like that story. Thank you, Charlie, for sharing. Anything else you'd like to share?
Um, let's see. I'm going to look at another big thing that happened to me. I preached my first sermon in Academy.
Okay.
And I remember we went out to La Crosse Church. And oh boy, her name has Ed, and I'm asking my wife here.
Turner.
Yeah, Mrs. Turner was our sponsor on that trip. I think we just got on a car and drove out there, got up real early on Sabbath morning and ended up out there. And so I had my sermon ready. My dad had helped me prepare it and everything. Anyway, Mrs. Turner got up before I spoke, and she went on for 15 minutes or so and talked about the academy, talked about, just did the things that the sponsors do. Well, I got up and had my sermon done in about 8 minutes.
I know what you mean. I understand
and,
completely.
I said what I had to say and I sat down.
You don't do
Anyway,
that
I'll
anymore.
no, I don't have that problem anymore. I can keep going nowadays. But that was my first sermon, and I've always just kind of chuckled. If you've ever been to La Crosse, they've got the two pulpits up there, and we were on one side there. I think it used to be a different denomination years ago, and so that's why they had the two
I
pulpits.
haven't been. I honestly, I haven't been in that. It's one of the few churches in Kansas I haven't been in. That's probably one of them, I think, because that doesn't ring a bell. But anyway, well, that's cool. Well, Charlie,
On,
it's
on
go ahead.
one last thing, on
You
on a
bet.
personal note, I just want to say to you how much I appreciate it and was honored to know your mother. Um,
Yeah,
she
he was
she was
special to
on
me.
conference committee for many many years, and when I was youth director there in Kansas, Nebraska, I got to see her, and it was always fun to sit down and visit with her.
Yeah. Well, she
So
she really appreciated you. I know that because she'd tell me about it and stuff. Of course, she knew I was in youth work also. So anyway, and had an interest in that. Of course, life took a different turn for me and went
yeah,
from a different way. But that's what the Lord said. This go this way. So anyway, well, it has been fun to talk to you, Charlie, and thank you so much
same
for
here.
taking. And we'll see you at another time.
Very good.